Today I'm going to be going on a hike to the top of this mountain behind me there, and I'm going to read a book up there for a little bit. And the book that I'm going to be reading today is The Overstory by Richard Powers. I've not read this one before. I think that it's a book about trees, kind of as you can tell by the cover. I'll read the back of the book for you guys, like the sleeve actually in this case since it's a hardcover. And yeah, it's a book about nature though, and I feel like reading about nature while you're in nature, like literally on the other side of this camera right now, I see so many trees just there on the other mountain, and I feel like it just makes it even better just reading about something while you're in that environment. So yeah, let's read the sleeve so you know what we're going to be reading today. According to the New York Times, it's a monumental novel about reimagining our place in the living world by one of our most prodigiously talented novelists. Okay, and the plot or the kind of general idea here is an Air Force loadmaster in the Vietnam War is shot out of the sky and then saved by falling into a banyan. An artist inherits 100 years of photographic portraits, all of the same doom American chestnut. A hard-partying undergraduate in the late 1980s electrocutes herself, dies, and is sent back to life by creatures of air and light. A hearing and speech-impaired scientist discovers that trees are communicating with one another. These 4 and 5 other strangers, each summoned in different ways by trees, are brought together in a last and violent stand to save the continent's few remaining acres of virgin forests. And yeah, that seems like the kind of general idea here. I am going to take you guys along for the hike up this mountain, and then we're going to start reading it up there. Definitely gained some ground here. As you can see, I'm pretty high up. It's crazy. You can see the mountains in the distance over there. I didn't even know those existed, not gonna lie. And then you see the village down there, ski runs. So cool. Okay, so we haven't reached like the top, but here it has such a nice view and it's super quiet. There's nobody else here. So I'm gonna start reading a little bit of the book. Then I think I'm gonna hike up more, maybe read more up there. And yeah, but this is basically gonna be the chill spot for starting the overstory. I got about 50 pages in to the book here, just the first couple chapters, and I find that sometimes when an author is trying to do a couple or a few different stories in the beginning, it can be really hard for them to pull it off. But the author did a good job here of introducing two, I'd say like vastly different stories in a way, with their characters and their backgrounds, but I still thought it was well done. I thought the characters were written well and the settings were really well done. Just the writing throughout was pretty cool. And yeah, I feel more connected to these characters in the beginning here. So I do hope it's the kind of story where we'll get to see them again going forward. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the book. And I'm happy though that I took a little bit of time to start reading here and begin the book with this view, because it was so nice to just read and be able to take a second every few minutes and look up and look at just the amazing view that I have here, especially with the themes of nature and trees in mind that this book is talking about. So yeah, I was happy to start this book. I'm looking forward to reading the rest, and actually staying here and stopping here was really cool because I got to notice some details that I wouldn't have if I just walked on by and continued hiking. Like there's snow on some of the mountains over there in the back. I'll show you that in a second, but that was pretty cool. I'm gonna continue to hike on up now, and then maybe once I get further up, I'll stop again to read. Well, I don't know if you can see, but there's the snow I was talking about on top of those mountains there in the distance. It's just pretty crazy for the end of June, but obviously it makes sense because I assume those mountains are super tall. Just continuing the hike up now, and it's kind of funny, as I'm hiking up, I find myself paying more attention to all of the trees around me. I think just because I've been reading this book, right? Just because I've been reading this book, it's interesting to see how reading a book affects the things that you pick up on more in real time. Because I've just started reading this book, trees are more on my mind. So now I'm paying attention to them, just continuing the hike up now. So I think I've gone to the main top of the hike here. I'm just gonna pause here for a second because it's such a beautiful place with such a nice view, and read a little bit more of the book. So I was able to read another 50-ish pages of the book, and I do like it so far. Though again, we were introduced to some more new characters rather than seeing the characters from the beginning again, which I didn't absolutely love. But the new character stories that we were introduced to were interesting and intriguing enough that it didn't absolutely bother me that much, though I do hope that we see all of these characters again in the book later on. But yeah, so far the book is going well. I do really like the focus on nature here, and I'm so happy that I've been able to read it while surrounded by amazing nature. And yeah, I'm just gonna hike down now, but I will update you guys on what I think about this book once I finish it, so I'll add that to this video here. But yeah, for now, just gonna hike down. Reading on top of a mountain, pretty fun experience. I do recommend. At times the bugs were annoying, but actually up here in the sun, they haven't been too bad. It was more the first stop that I made that they were just swarming me. But yeah, be careful of that if you do decide to do this. Yeah, it was a really cool, peaceful experience. I haven't seen anybody else on the hike or on the mountain up here, at least. So yeah, it was pretty cool, pretty peaceful, and I'll get back to you guys on my full review of The Overstory. I finished the book, and this will just be my final review of it here. No spoilers though, don't worry. So I liked this book, and I was actually surprised by it because initially, for some reason, I thought that it was going to be more futuristic or fantastical in a sense, but it ended up being super realistic with situations, events, characters that could have truly happened and existed. And this worked to make the novel incredibly grounded. And I actually do mean the pun there, because when an author models their story off of the broader things that they're talking about and blends it together really well, it works to amplify their message. By making this novel grounded and realistic, it draws attention to the ground, to the reality of the earth that we live in, and to the message that he was trying to get across there. So I thought that was really good. I also thought that the realism was especially present in the middle and last parts, and that the author did a good job of situating the readers in the time periods that were occurring, with a lot of small details that really worked to make the world feel super realistic there. I thought that he was also able to balance the more magical aspects with the reality in a really fluid way. I also thought it was just really well written with interesting characters and stories, and I actually learned legit facts like about tree communication here, so that was surprising and cool. One character story that I thought was incredibly interesting here was Nile's. I'll just get that for you. So pay attention to his story if you are deciding to read this, because I thought it was the most interesting out of all of the characters there. With this book, one thing that I did not like though was the structure. I found that it took a little bit too much time to set up the characters, and there were too many perspectives there that just took a long time to set up before coming together. I also thought that it would have been nice to see some of these characters come together more, and wish that that had happened. Another thing to critique here was I found the story to be too American focused, and normally that would be no problem at all. Like, American focused stories are great, but because this story was about connectedness, about trees, about the world, about the earth and nature that occurs obviously all over the world, I thought that the lack of a multinational perspective here did make the book a little bit lacking, and it would have served to improve it by setting up a few characters in different countries rather than just in America. Overall though, a really nice book with inspirational ideas, well written, but I just thought it could have been threaded together a bit more carefully and cleaned up there. Also thought that there were just a couple too many characters being juggled in this one. But yeah, I recommend reading it, and I do recommend reading it in nature. I think that served to really enhance my experience here. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one.